Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. The attorney team for Alex Murdaugh, who is currently in prison for the double murders of his wife and youngest son, had a press conference this afternoon announcing that they have filed a motion for a new trial due to many factors, the main being that they are alleging the clerk of court tampered with the jury during the trial and fabricated evidence to have a juror removed. For those that watched the trial, you may remember the egg lady at the end. Well, that's who they are referring to. So I'm going to play the press conference and then we'll go over some more of the information that we know so far.
So I'm going to read a statement. Jim Griffin will have a couple words to say, and then we'll answer questions. Today, Jim Griffin and I filed a petition based on newly discovered evidence with the South Carolina Court of Appeals to stay Alex Murdaugh's appeal while a hearing is held on a motion for a new trial. Concurrently, we've sent a request to the South Carolina U.S. Attorney to open a federal investigation into the violation of Alex Murdaugh's civil rights. The allegations in the petition filed today speak for themselves, but we believe they explain a number of peculiarities in the 6-week trial. We request that SWED stand down on initiating any investigation of these allegations since they are heavily invested in maintaining Alex's convictions. We suggest they wait for the Court of Appeals to rule and receive direction from the trial court. If the Court of Appeals remands the case for an evidentiary hearing, if the Court of Appeals remands the case for an evidentiary hearing, we would also request that those in the media and the public respect the privacy of those included in this filing. Jim and I want to thank those on our team who stand behind us and have worked tirelessly to ferret out the truth. Alex Murdaugh maintained and still maintains his innocence in the murder of Maggie and Paul, and believes the truth will ultimately prevail. Jim?
The right to a jury trial, the right to a jury trial is a fundamental principle of our justice system. Jurors must be free from outside influences and must decide the case solely on the evidence presented in the courtroom, subject to the rules of evidence, subject to the rules of the court, and, most importantly, subject to the crucible of cross-examination that's guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution, and that is the right to confront witnesses. When jurors receive private communications outside the confines of a public courtroom, the Sixth Amendment is violated and numerous other constitutional rights are violated. And that's not Jim Griffin on the law, that is the law of the land. And I want to quote from a decision from the South Carolina Court of Appeals, which is behind me, and states this: where there is a private communication of a court official to members of the jury, an occurrence which cannot be tolerated if the sanctity of the jury system is to be maintained, a new trial must be granted unless it clearly appears that the subject matter of the communication was harmless and could not have affected the verdict. What we had filed today, supported by sworn testimony of jurors, is that the Clerk of Court had improper private communications with the jurors, and the subject matter of those communications was the credibility of the defense that the Murdaugh legal defense team put up, and it was the believability of the defendant's own testimony. Now, there's been a lot of talked about whether Alex should have taken the stand. I can assure you, when we considered what factors and what we should and should not do and considered whether he should take the stand, we never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the Clerk of Court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language, and that is what the sworn testimony that we have filed in court today says. And if that is true, which we have every reason to believe that it is, and no reason to believe that it's not, there is no choice but the courts to grant a new trial.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
Yeah, wow.
Okay.
When the fourth person was pulled away at Moselle, did you guys see that, or did you find out after the fact?
Well, I think we observed it. We did. No, I was there.
Oh, yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I was there. I watched it. But, I mean, look, we were not looking to impute any nefarious conduct. But clearly what the jurors reported to us, that they were off talking, the forelady and the clerk. I saw them together, but, you know, I wasn't watching. I believe, look, I've been doing this almost 50 years. The bedrock of any trial, and I've done hundreds of them, is that the clerk of court is the person that makes sure the jury gets their food. If they're put up for the night, someplace to stay, their travel accommodations are met. They're not someone that ever should talk to them about the case. I've never had it happen. Again, I've been doing this for a very long time. Never heard of it happening until this case.
And one thing we want everyone to understand, that the clerk of court is an elected official by the people, not appointed by the judge, not appointed by the judiciary. It's a public official who's elected and is an independent state actor. And so what we're complaining about in the motion that we filed today is the conduct of an elected official, not conduct by Judge Newman or anybody in the unified court system.
And I think it's important also to understand that she is a state actor, and that's why we forwarded today a letter to the U.S. Attorney asking them to open an investigation into the violation of Alec Murdaugh's civil rights by a state actor under color of state law.
I believe you guys had 4 jurors that you had affidavits for in the paperwork you filed. Did they reach out to you, or did you guys reach out to them?
Well, this is an interesting story. Let Jim tell you.
So immediately in the aftermath of the verdict, we had received information that we needed to look into what happened in the jury room. We started down that road, and we met a zone of silence. No jurors would speak to us. And so we were, you know, what I like to call, we were given the Heisman, right? And then when the clerk of court wrote her book, published her book, that zone of silence collapsed. And jurors were upset about that, the ones we talked with, and they were more than willing to come forward and tell us the things that we had sort of heard through a whisper campaign. But and so as a result of that, we were able to interview some jurors. Now, there's still a number of jurors who maintain that zone of silence, who have not talked to us. We did try to reach out to most all of them that we could get in touch with, but the information we got, I can tell you, was independent of each juror. The first juror we talked to, we got information about Ms. Hill saying, "Don't be fooled." And then the second juror, independent of the first juror, says the same thing, and the third juror, independent of the other two, say the same thing. And so we're very confident that the information is accurate.
Well,
What's the expectation timeline?
what
When a ruling will be? How fast do you want it?
ask them. I mean, we don't have any control over that. We just did receive a notice from the Court of Appeals that the Attorney General has 10 days to respond to our motion. Okay? Now, I think what's interesting to me, again, having done this for so long, is that once we had that initial contact with that first juror, we began going around. We had a list and knocking on, literally on Sundays, knocking on jurors' doors, asking them to speak with us. Some of them wouldn't come out. Some of us told us never to come back. But some did, and some talked to us. I'll give you an example. And one of the things we heard was, once the jury went out, even though there were 6 smokers and they were given smoke breaks during the entire trial, once the jury went out, they were told, no more smoke breaks. No, you people that want nicotine, you're going to have to get a verdict first. I mean, it's that kind of stuff. Now, that indicates something, and the court would be the one to communicate that. Why? So a bunch of folks told us stuff that appeared to be inconsequential, but in the total context indicated to us that what we've put in this petition about the clerk is credible, and based on sworn testimony from 2 jurors, and we interviewed a third my paralegal, Holly Miller, has given you an affidavit or filed an affidavit on what she told us. A lot of these folks just don't want to get involved. But they're going to be involved if we get a hearing, because each and every one of them is going to have to testify in an open court before you as to what happened and what didn't happen. Wait, one at a time. Who?
It would appear that Judge Newman was at least aware of some of the allegations that you talk about in your motion. For example, the Facebook post with juror 785, and the judge actually said, "Oh boy, I'm not too pleased about the clerk interrogating a juror as opposed to coming to me and happening to me."
And that's a good point. There's no suggestion that the judge did anything untoward. But what that does do, if it comes back, he may end up being a witness. So, I mean, but until the Court of Appeals acts, that issue does not have to be dealt with.
But if the fact is that the court was aware of some of these issues but still didn't intervene, how concerned are you?
We don't know. We don't know that he didn't intervene. That's why I'm saying he's a witness. We need to know.
That this evidence is strong enough such that it could have changed the verdict had it been introduced in trial.
You know, that's not the legal test. The legal test is the subject matter prejudicial to the defense. It's not would it have made a difference in the outcome. Was the subject matter of the improper private conversation material to the defense? If it's immaterial, like what do you want to have for dinner? Do you want to take a smoke break? Do you want to go home? Those are immaterial matters. But when the subject matter is, and is reported under oath by these jurors, it was a direction on how you should receive Alec Murdaugh's testimony. You should look at him. Don't be fooled by him. That subject matter is absolutely material. That's the core of our defense, and that is something that we had no chance to defend against. And so we strongly believe if that evidence is accurate, and the law will require a new trial.
If this is all true, do you think the clerk should be criminally charged?
When was the last time
No
you spoke
comment.
with your client, and what has he shared with you with this latest motion?
Well, I can't talk about attorney-client privilege information. I can tell you that when I shared with him the affidavits, he's a lawyer. He was astonished. He was shaking. He was in disbelief, and he thanked Mr. Harpootlian, Mr. Barber, and myself for spending our weekends on dirt roads in Colleton County.
And by the way, we've seen more of Colleton County on dirt roads in places we're city boys, we didn't believe existed in this state, looking for folks that would talk to us. A lot of doors slammed in our face. A lot of doors slammed in our faces.
Do you think Ms. Hill should still have her job?
I'm sorry?
Do you think Ms. Hill should still have her job?
No comment. I'm sorry, what?
The Facebook posting from the ex-husband of the dismissed juror. There's a lot of detail in there about that, and there's some in-camera transcripts in there as well. Was this not something that it was handled very quickly? The fact that you guys are alleging it didn't exist at all, and perhaps was conspired to be created to get this juror dismissed?
Yes.
I mean, that's a very serious allegation.
It's all serious. Everything we've alleged, everything in those affidavits is serious. This is a very serious matter. And again,
So what you see in the sworn testimony that's been filed today is Ms. Hill told the court that there was a Facebook post by this juror's ex-husband. The ex-husband has filed an affidavit saying, "I've never posted a Facebook post." Ms. Hill in her office says he must have deleted it. We can't find it. But they produced a Facebook post from someone with the same name apologizing for an earlier Facebook post, and that Satan made him do it, and et cetera, et cetera. And Ms. Hill related that as being this juror's ex-husband. Ms. Hill had this juror's ex-husband's photograph. You can match them up. They don't match. And what we do know, and we laid it out in detail in our brief, is that the apology Facebook post was posted, I think, on February 16th, and said we had deleted it the day before, February 15th. Ms. Hill is telling Judge Newman on February 23rd that I just saw this Facebook post. Impossible. Impossible. We also have in there sworn testimony that Ms. Hill told this juror that SLED went out and confirmed with your ex-husband that he posted that. Not true, according to the sworn testimony.
And Phil Barber and I and Holly Miller from my office went down and interviewed the ex-husband, and he allowed us I wouldn't know how to do it, but Phil did, to download his entire Facebook history. None of that is in there. So, I mean, again, we've done what we can do. We're not the police. You know, we have no way to compel anybody to talk to us or give us anything. We've asked very nicely. Now, I will say this. The two jurors that gave affidavits have an attorney, Joe McCullough, who was skulking around here a moment ago back there. So if you want to know about those two jurors, you may want to have a chat with him.
What's the motivation of the jurors
Wait.
talking to you?
Wait, what?
What's the motivation, do you think, of the jurors talking to you? Are they upset with the clerk?
I think they were upset with the way things went, and the clerk, I think they may very well, yes, they're upset with the clerk. They're upset with the way this played out.
Are they regretting their vote?
Can't comment on that.
The Facebook post, the person who posted the original post, have you ever gotten an opportunity to speak with them, and if so?
No. I mean, the original post, we don't know whether it ever existed.
But the apology post, did you speak with him, Phil?
No, we did not speak.
Do you have a timeline from the FBI regarding your request for a new investigation?
Well, as you know, having talked to the FBI before, no. They're not going to tell us anything.
In your letter to the U.S. Attorney, you mentioned the importance of having the FBI investigate as opposed to SLED, for example. Can you talk about the importance of having the FBI get involved?
Well, having anybody but SLED investigate it. SLED is very invested in this conviction. How invested? Well, the agent, David Owens, that testified under cross-examination by Jim, admitted two things. One, he perjured himself in front of the grand jury. And two, he fabricated evidence. SLED made him this year's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. So is that the agency that ought to be going to jurors? I don't think so. I think that the court, if this is remanded back, the trial court should pick somebody else. If the FBI is not doing it, then there's the sheriff's departments, there are other folk, not Colleton County, but other sheriff's departments that they could go out and interview jurors or bring them to court. I mean, all these jurors are going to end up testifying anyway. There may not be any reason to go out and interview them. They may just put a subpoena on them, bring them to court.
How important is your appeal if these jurors testify under oath in a place where, like you say, through the zone of silence when they have the police talking about the court?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that would happen if we get the hearing that we've requested. That's why we've requested the hearing, so that we can get subpoena power and we can get some subpoena, not just individuals come to court, jurors come to court, witnesses come to court, but subpoena records, phone records, for example, emails, for example. I mean, so with a hearing, we have a broad array of assets at our disposal to bring evidence to court. Right now, we've got nothing except Dick's Mercedes and dirt roads in Colleton County.
Have you spoken to any jurors who refute what the other jurors are saying?
No, we've not had any juror contradict anything what the other jurors are saying. What you saw in some of the affidavits is the jurors were separated in two rooms and sort of broke up from, guys in one room, gals in another room. I don't know if that was appropriate. Men in one room, females in another room, and so the comments that we've gotten on the sworn affidavits come from the ladies' room, if you will, more so than the men's room. But we do have information that we submitted from one juror where he does acknowledge that she talked to him about evidence, about autopsy photos, and don't be upset about them. I mean, that should not be happening. That should not be happening. And this juror is a smoker, and he relayed to us basically the coercive effect of people who have a nicotine habit not able to smoke
Until they reach a verdict.
And so that's what we got.
Wait a second. Yeah.
I have an issue with the cable at the very. Could you read that? There is an initial motion real fast. Do that issue you sent.
Do what now?
The motion you read. Can you read that? The very first thing. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'll read it for you after we get done with this, but I don't think I ought to keep all these folks doing that.
Would you request a change of venue?
Well, you got to get a new trial before you get there, and that's not something we're going to talk about today. And yes, ma'am.
The activities that the jurors have given the affidavits for, was that behavior that you believe Ms. Hill was exhibiting to all 12 at one time?
We don't.
Or were they singled out or segregated?
Well, we know some of the statements were made in front of the jurors in the one jury room. Now, understand I think there were only 6 jurors in that room. or maybe 8. I'm not sure, but not all the jurors would have been present for all the statements. Clearly, they were given in one room or the other.
And just to be clear, the catalyst for reinvestigating this was the publication of Ms. Hill's book?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Go ahead.
So we didn't stop investigating, but we were hitting brick walls until her book came out, and then jurors who obviously were not comfortable with how she handled matters were even less comfortable with her going on a book tour and making money off what she did. That's what was reported to us.
Now, she has said her book is self-published. That really doesn't sound like somebody who's getting a lot of money. What do you say to that if somebody says, well, she's just self-published?
Well, she's trying to make a lot of money. That's the point. I mean, she's trying to make money off of it. She's selling the book. I mean, the question is, was it a successful scheme? I don't know. I mean, if you've read it, I'm not going to give a book review here, but I don't know that you buy the book. I mean, it's not well written. The story she tells is not accurate, in our opinion, at least the facts as we saw them.
What did you think about the passage of her book that describes going to Moselle with the jurors?
Well, you know, the problem I have with what she says in there is, after going to Moselle, we, if you notice, she used the plural we, felt such and such and such and such. Is that the jurors and her? I mean, I think that's great cross-examination for her when she testifies in this matter before the trial judge, if the Court of Appeals sends it back.
Do you want any hearing in this matter to be public?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want all y'all there. We miss you. Any other questions?
Yeah, you said you're investigating, so along your investigations into the alleged jury misconduct and these allegations, have you uncovered any additional things that you would present in a second trial for your defense?
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, no. If we are lucky enough to get a second trial, you have to wait and see. You know, we're not going to disclose any of that today.
What is your optimism for getting for this motion?
I'm very optimistic that ultimately we will get a new trial. How long that'll take, I don't know.
Have you tried to reach Clerk Hill, ask her any questions about any of this?
We've not reached out to Clerk Hill. We had reached out to some other folks, and based on the information we received, we thought it would be pointless to reach out to her.
Do you have any alternate suspects or suspects?
What now?
Do you have any alternate suspects or suspects in the case?
We're focused on getting him a new trial. That's what we've been working on. Anything else? No? Thank you so much.
Wow, this particular press conference is a very big deal, because if Rebecca Hill legitimately did any of the things that the defense team is alleging, and of course the jury is alleging it to, I suppose, to the defense team. If that's the case, wow. And that is Rebecca Hill on the far left. Of course, that's Alec. And that would be Judge Newman, whom I've always loved since I saw this trial. As far as her book is concerned, part of me wonders if this is kind of like the whole game from the get-go, because, we're talking the Murdaugh family. We're talking this town that's so known for the Murdaughs, and I don't know, you kind of have to have this suspiciousness, this wondering if there's a conspiracy, something further going on, and this is, her book comes out, the clerk's book is out, the big special on Fox Nation where Buster and speaks to them, the whole boat trial thing. Stephen Smith's coming through, and the housekeeper situation. So, there's just so much in the news right now as far as the Murdaugh family. So to me, I do kind of have like a wonder, in the back of my head. It's like, okay, is there more to this than meets the eye? But I don't know. I mean, I'm really curious to see what happens, because I would hope that this woman wouldn't jeopardize her entire reputation and career for all this. But then again, Alec Murdaugh kind of did that as well. So I don't know, the Low Country seems to kind of have its own little set of rules. But to kind of go through a bit more, I wanted to make sure to play the entire presser, because the attorneys did really discuss a big portion of what's going on, and then of course they teased it over the holiday, and that why today they made their big announcement. Like they said that they are, they're alleging that Collette County Clerk of Court Rebecca Hill instructed jurors not to be misled by evidence presented in Mr. Alec Murdaugh's defense, and she told them not to be fooled by him. And she also has allegedly had many conversations privately with the jury foreperson, and that's definitely a no-no. Like they stated, she can't discuss the trial with this jury. I mean, you can't do that. And so not only did the motion get filed for a new trial, but like they stated that they sent a letter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of South Carolina, the legal team, which is basing their allegations on details from the jurors. And basically, that particular letter states, that's the one I was able to get a hold of. I'm not seeing the full filings from the motions just yet. But what it states is, on March 1st of 2023, after a 6-week trial in Colleton County, my client, Richard Alexander Murdaugh, was convicted of murder of his wife Maggie and son Paul. I write to request a urgent federal investigation of conduct by a South Carolina elected official during that trial. I have attached Mr. Murdaugh's recent filing in the South Carolina Court of Appeals regarding this matter, which describes jury tampering by the Clerk of Court for Colleton County, Rebecca Hill. Ms. Hill's conduct, described in detail by jurors in a sworn affidavit testimony, implicates 18 U.S.C. State Statute 242, which imposes criminal penalties on any person acting, quote, under the color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom willfully subjects any person to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunity secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States, unquote. Ms. Hill acted under color of South Carolina law. She is the elected Clerk of Court charged with, quote, jury management, unquote. Now, the Clerk of Court manual, they go on to mention that, and then every interaction she had with any juror during the murder trial was under the pretense of authority granted by state law. In our recent court filing, we assert that Ms. Hill's actions deprive Mr. Murdaugh of his rights under the Constitution. We believe that the statements of the state actor to the jurors are controlled by the command of the Sixth Amendment, made applicable to the states through the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. It guarantees that the accused shall enjoy the right to a trial by an impartial jury and be confronted with the witnesses against him. As we said in Turner v. State of Louisiana, the evidence developed against a defendant shall come from the witness stand in a public courtroom where there is a full judicial protection of the defendant's right of confrontation, of cross-examination, and of counsel. We have followed the undeviating rule that the rights of confrontation and cross-examination are among the fundamental rights of a constitutionally fair trial. I request that federal law enforcement investigate whether Ms. Hill and any other state actor violated these statutes by tampering with the Colleton County jury. Even if no federal charges are ultimately brought, an investigation by the FBI agents is needed to discover the truth and to vindicate Mr. Murdaugh's federally guaranteed right to a fair trial. The professionalism and integrity of the FBI's agents are unimpeachable. The FBI agents will not attempt to direct the outcome of any investigation by pressuring or deceiving any juror or other witness. No juror will attempt to deceive an FBI agent. If FBI agents interview the jurors, the truth will be known, whatever the truth may be. The same cannot be said of any investigation conducted by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, which is SLED, who has a vested interest in upholding Mr. Murdaugh's conviction. Mr. Murdaugh may be the most unpopular man in South Carolina right now. He has become the symbol of low country judicial corruption. Disgust at his frauds, unfortunately, has created in some minds a but not Alex Murdaugh exception to the due process rights enjoyed by all Americans, regardless guilt or innocence. Those minds may delight in the irony that he may very well be a victim of corruption he symbolizes, of the very corruption he symbolizes. Federal law enforcement has long acted as a shield that prevents popular passions against a hated person from injuring the rights enjoyed by all persons. I ask that it be done so again here. And that is signed by Mr. Richard Harpoolian. So that's the actual letter that they're requesting that the U.S. Attorney does an investigation into this whole entire hot mess, which is how I'm going to kind of call it right now. So they're alleging further that, in their actual motion to the court, that Rebecca Hill asked jurors for their opinions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt or innocence. Ms. Hill invented a story about a Facebook post to remove a juror she believed might vote guilty. Now, this is in reference to the quote-unquote egg woman, like I mentioned earlier. Before the jury went to deliberate, it came out that there was someone who may have spoken to someone else about the case, and that's what they were referring to in the presser, and we found out that she had eggs in the refrigerator in the jury room. So she has become known as the quote-unquote egg woman. So yeah, that one is interesting to say the least. So they're saying that there might be a corrupt juror, and further though, they're really stating that Rebecca Hill is the main problem. So yeah, and then they go on further on these motions that they discuss further about the Facebook post, which was reportedly saw on the evening of Friday, February 24th, and that Judge Newman did look into, and then he dismissed the juror due to it, but they couldn't find a copy of this post, and then they mentioned also the apology post. So they're stating that this was not something that I guess could be located. Surely if it exists, it's got to be, you can't really delete, nothing's really deleted off the internet. So if it's really in existence, I'm thinking that the FBI could find it for sure. Anyhow, it keeps going on and on, the whole motions goes on about how that, Hill was just continually, speaking to the foreperson, and how she was just, trying to get through to them. And as they mentioned, telling them that that the smokers couldn't have a smoke break until they had a verdict, which they obviously can't do. So, yeah. So this is, like I said, this is big. This is huge. If this is legitimately true that this clerk of court did this, that committed these actions, and not only could she lose her job, but she could be charged with a crime. So yeah, and the fact that Alex Murdaugh's team went all this way to file these motions and do this presser today makes me think they're pretty darn confident that they're going to get a potentially new trial. Judge Newman is going to be, from what I understand, he's going to be having to retire at the end of this year. So the likeliness that he'll be overseeing another trial is pretty much not going to happen. So who knows who will oversee the next trial? But I do have to say, I do understand them not wanting SLED to investigate this whole situation due to the fact that, yeah, they are pretty much they're pretty anti-Murdaugh. But what can you say? Anywho, yeah, that's the gist of things. I don't know if you guys saw the presser before or if you're just seeing it now through the video here, but let me know what you think of all this, especially if you follow this trial like I did. This is crazy. I mean, you had 6 weeks of all this stuff, and now, man, it's like we already thought there was enough corruption in Low Country. I mean, geez, there may be even more than we ever knew. So let me know what you think in the comments. And with that said, that's all I've got for this one. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And most of all, stay safe.